evening and welcome to CYC News for today, the 13th of September 2015 AD and the 2nd of Tut 1732 AM. I'm Susie Michael. In today's headlines, ISIS says Norwegian and Chinese hostages are for sale. Iran's supreme leader says there will be no such thing as Israel in 25 years. Obama secures Iran nuclear deals with Barbara Mikulski vote. IDC calls on US international community to take urgent steps to confront genocide in the Middle East. French president says Islamic State commits crimes against humanity in Iraq, Syria. And the US Open 2015, is Serena Williams standing on the brink of history? To our top story, where two men stand in yellow jumpsuits staring toward the camera with a chilling message posted below their portraits. The words, "For sale." The images, tucked away in the final pages of the latest edition of the ISIS online magazine, Brink, are part of a troubling new claim. The terrorist group says it's holding two more foreign national hostages. One page reads, "Norwegian prisoner for sale." The next says, "Chinese prisoner for sale." The pages show images of the men from several angles and ask for an undisclosed ransom to pay for their release and transfer. The men appear to be wearing tags with their names and identification number. The magazine also lists each man's perpetrated occupation, place of birth, date of birth, and home address. An ominous warning appears beneath an Iraqi phone number at the bottom of each page. Note, this is a limited time offer. Speaking to reporters in Oslo late Wednesday, Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg confirmed that a Norwegian man in his 40s was being held hostage in Syria, and all indications point towards ISIS. The man was kidnapped at the end of January and held hostage by different groups. Now he's believed to be an ISIS hostage, according to the Prime Minister. The kidnappers have asked for specific ransom amounts several times, but Norway will not pay. This is a matter that the government is taking very seriously. We neither can nor will give in to pressure from terrorists and criminals. Norway does not pay ransom, Solberg said. This is a principle we cannot depart from in the face of cynical terrorists. Payment of ransom would increase the risk that other Norwegian nationals will be taken hostage. To Coptic news, where on the 6th of September 2015, His Grace Bishop Karas, the General Bishop of the Papal Deputy of America, inaugurated a new church of St. Barnabas the Apostle and St. Susanna in the city of Baltimore in Maryland, America. His Grace Bishop Karas headed the first liturgy that was held in it, and there was a celebration that was held after the liturgy that was attended by numerous people and priests from America. Still in Coptic news, on the 7th of September, His Grace Bishop Luca, the General Bishop of southern France and the French sector in Switzerland, ordained two deacons with agnostos rank for the Erythraean Orthodox Church in Switzerland. In other news, Israel will not exist in another quarter century, according to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. "I'd like to say Israel will not see the end of these 25 years. The Islamic Republic news agency quoted Khamenei at the Imam Khomeini Mosque. Khamenei raised the issue while discussing the recent nuclear deal between Iran and the so-called PS+1, the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, China and Russia. Amongst other things, Iran agreed to cut its uranium stockpiles and limit uranium enrichment in exchange for the West lifting sanctions against the Islamic Republic. "God willing, there will be no such thing as a Zionist regime in 25 years, he said, according to IRNA. Until then, struggling, heroic and jihadic morale will leave no moment of serenity for Zionists. The agreement allows the International Atomic Energy Agency to access Iranian facilities for verifications. Still, the Obama administration has faced fierce criticism over the agreement from both sides of the aisle, especially from Republicans, who have promised to scuttle the deal despite the fact the president reportedly has sufficient support to veto any such measure. Khamenei's speech promises to make a continuous deal prickler. Some of the agreement's measures will remain in place for 25 years. Seizing on that time frame, Khamenei noted that some observers say it should ally Israel's fears about a nuclear Iran during that time. In a major victory for President Barack Obama, Democratic Senator Barbara Mikulski of Maryland announced support for the Iran nuclear deal, provided the White House has the votes it needs to prevent Republicans from scuttling the agreement. The announcement means that at least 34 senators, the number required by the Constitution to sustain a veto, will back Obama's expected veto of a Republican resolution to disapprove of the deal. Mikulski is retiring at the end of her term. Secretary of State John Kerry said that the administration will continue to try and push support for the deal past the 34 votes they now have until the last moment. Kerry told CNN's Christine Amanpour 34 votes are obviously enough votes for the president's veto to be upheld. That is not satisfactory for us. We do want to try to go further, and we will continue to persuade. That prospect upsets some Republicans who believe the historic agreement deserves a final up or down vote. US Secretary of State John Kerry called Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Saturday to discuss reports of an imminent Russian military buildup in Syria, according to the State Department. According to the State Department in a written statement, if such a buildup occurred, it could further escalate the conflict, lead to greater loss of innocent life, increase refugee flows and risk confrontation with the anti-ISIS coalition operating in Syria. Kerry and Lavrov agreed to continue the discussion of Syria in New York later this month. The Los Angeles Times, citing unnamed United States officials, reported that US intelligence has captured evidence Russia is increasing its military presence in Syria's civil war. The officials told the newspaper the evidence reportedly includes satellite images of what looks like a base under construction that could be used for staging troops and heavy equipment. Elise Labott, CNN's global affairs correspondent and Russia, said Russia and the United States had been talking about finding a political solution in Syria, which is gripped by a deadly civil war and threatened by ISIS. If Russians are indeed increasing their military presence in Syria, it would certainly complicate that, Labott said. She said Russia might be escalating airstrikes against ISIS, but that the real concern is that the Russians are increasing their activity on behalf of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad against the opposition. Or, said Labott, the Russians could be taking steps to secure their own position if the Assad government falls. On a secluded beach on the Turkish coast, men stand knee-deep in shallow water, loading a group of about 30 people into a black inflated pontoon boat. The passengers, refugees and migrants bound for the Greek island of Lesbos, cram in wearing life jackets or inner tubes around their necks, a sign of the potential dangers ahead. A group of 4 Turkish men thrust the overcrowded boat out into the water as they push. Another Turkish man, this one piloting the vessel, can be seen barking orders at the passengers. Moments later, as the rubber boat drifts out to sea, the man abandons the ship, diving off the back of the boat and swimming towards the shore. At first, the migrants seem to not know how to steer the boat. For several minutes, it motors around in a tight circle as the group of smugglers on shore curse and hurl abuse at the people on board. Finally, the boat straightens out and begins motoring across the sea in the direction of Lesbos, tracing the path of another migrant boat already making its way toward the island. The incident, which took place on the morning of August 31st, was captured on film by journalist Ibrahim Kasi. He counted 7 boats packed with migrants departing during a 6-hour period from the stretch of coastline near Turkey's Assos region. As the boat sailed off into the distance, dozens of other migrants dressed in life jackets sat patiently on shore under olive trees, waiting for their turn to set sail for Greece. Over to Syria, where, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a recent decree by Islamic State commander Abdullah Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi set humiliating conditions Christians under the group's control must obey in order to avoid murder. The documents addressed 2 villages near Damascus and includes 11 rules to which Christians need to focus on to save their money, religion and their own safety. These 11 rules are: number 1, Christians shall not build churches, monasteries or hermitages in the city or in the surrounding areas. 2, they shall not show the cross or any of their books in the Muslim streets or markets and shall not use amplifiers when worshipping or during prayer. 3, they shall not make Muslims hear the reciting of their books or the sound of church bells, which must be rung only inside their churches. Number 4, they shall not carry out any act of aggression against IS, such as giving refuge to spies and wanted men. If they know of any plot against Muslims, they must report it. Number 5, they shall not perform any religious ritual in public. Number 6, they shall respect Muslims and not criticize their religion. 7, Christians shall pay the annual jizya of 4 gold denaries, middle-class Christians shall pay 2 gold denaries, and the poor shall pay 1, provided that Christians shall disclose their income and shall split the jizya into 2 payments. Number 8, they may not possess weapons. 9, they shall not sell pigs or alcohol. 10, they shall have their own cemeteries. And number 11, they shall abide by the IS dress code and commerce guidelines. This contract was issued after control of ISIS over 2 villages and destruction of Ma Ilian Monastery on August 20. Louis Raphael I Seiko, Patriarch of Chalendins in Iraq and the world, said the elimination of terrorism and extremist thoughts require real political reconciliation. After participating in the minorities conference held in Paris, he told the National Iraqi News Agency that peace requires reforming the Iraqi constitution to include all components of the community, without ethnic, sectarian or religious discrimination. He said all citizens should be equal and all forms of discrimination in the community should be eliminated. The Patriarch of the Chalendins added that the team of the Iraqi government should be appointed based on efficiency, and religion and state should not be combined. He mentioned that religion should be a source of hope and should contribute to the development of the community and its stability, not a source of hatred and division for political and sectarian interests. Patriarch Seiko stressed that Christians and Muslims should work together to establish a better future. He added that an international initiative should be taken to regain stability in the crisis and to confront terrorists, and that military intervention on the ground should not be excluded. Participants in the International Convention of Advocates for Christians in the Middle East called on the United States and the international community to take, quote, urgent steps, unquote, to confront the atrocities against many sects in the Middle East. In a statement issued in the organisation at the end of the first session of the convention, they described the position of the United States and the international community towards what is happening to Christians and all victims as inappropriate. In the statement, Kirsten Evans, Executive Director of the organisation, said the eradication process faced by the whole sects in the Middle East requires a response from the international community. She mentioned that they were silent on some cases, and such silence makes all of them plotters. Anton Chenau, member board of the directors of the organisation, urged the United States to take urgent and strict actions to confront violence committed against Christians and all victims in the Middle East. Frank Wolf, a former member of the House for 5 consecutive sessions and an advocate for Christians of the Middle East, condemned the world's silence on what is happening to Christians of the Middle East. He said that what is happening in Syria and Iraq is a genocide according to the legal classification, and called on the US administration to recognise it as such. He displayed a short film that addressed world silence on the Holocaust against Jews in Germany. He said that the international community is also silent now on crimes against humanity committed in the Middle East. Katrina Landhaus-Swett, head of the US Commission on International Religious Freedom, said that ISIS's crimes are similar to crimes of Nazism and fascism committed in the past. Professor Bob Dastro called on the United Nations Security Council to form an international court to judge ISIS for the crimes against humanity they committed. Bishop Mansour, Bishop of the Lebanese community in Washington, said that ISIS do not commit crimes against Christians only, but against Muslims also and all religious sects who do not adhere to ISIS teachings. Aram Amparian, the executive director of the Armenian National Committee of America, confirmed Bishop Mansour's statement. This is the second convention held by the organisation this year. This convention lasts for 3 days. The convention is held this year under the title Mobilizing America for Christians in the Middle East. In France now, where the French President François Hollande said Islamic State committed crimes against humanity in Iraq and Syria, and there must be accountability by the international community for such acts. The President's remarks came in the beginning of the Paris Conference on Victims of Ethnic and Religious Violence. The conference was led by France and Jordan and was attended by French President François Hollande and the Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry. Hollande added that what had happened in the city of Mosul in Iraq against minorities is a tragedy, and the Islamic State's goal is to spread fear in the hearts of minorities. The French president stressed that the first victims of the Islamic State are Muslims. I cannot forget the picture of the Syrian child dead on a Turkish coast, the picture that stirred up public opinion. We must work to find a political solution in Syria, and all countries should contribute to that, said the French president. He stressed that if support is not provided to the countries hosting refugees, there will be more tragedies, adding that France respects values and the need for states to receive refugees. The president called for the need to move with the international coalition against the Islamic State, in which France is participating, and the support of the UN Security Council. The conference will discuss ways to meet the needs of peoples at risk and to facilitate the voluntary and permanent return of the displaced. In addition, finding political solutions that take into account human rights and maintain the cultural, ethnic and religious diversity in the Middle East. The conference also aims to discuss how to put an end to impunity for those who committed crimes against people because of their ethnicity or religion, in which some cases amount to the level of crimes against humanity and war crimes. In a statement on Thursday, New York City Police Commissioner William Bratton said he wants to apologise to former tennis star James Blake, who was mistakenly tackled and handcuffed by police in a sting operation that went AWOL outside Manhattan Hotel on Wednesday. Bratton insisted ethnicity was not a factor in the incident. It should not have happened, Bratton said at a news conference. I don't believe that race was a factor. Blake is biracial. Several officers made the arrest outside the Grand Hyatt Hotel, and one of them, a white undercover officer, has been placed on desk duty. Blake, once ranked number 4 in the world, told the New York Daily News that there's no reason for anybody to do that to anybody else. I was just standing there, I wasn't running. It's not even close to being okay. It's blatantly unnecessary. Blake told the Daily News as many as 5 plainclothes police officers tackled him. He was waiting for a car to pick him up and take him to the US Open tennis tournament, where he was doing corporate appearances. Blake, 35, spent 5 or 10 minutes with his hands cuffed behind his back before police realised they had the wrong person and let him go, Commissioner Bratton said. NYPD Chief of Detectives Robert Boyce said that detectives from the Identity Theft Task Force had gone to the hotel at midday to arrest people purchasing high-end shoes with fraudulent credit cards. Officers set up the sting after a company that delivered goods on demand notified police that a group of people had purchased $18,000 in items using fraudulent credit cards. And to our final story, 2 matches away from making history. That's the position Serena Williams finds herself in going into Thursday's US Open semi-final against Roberta Vinci. Should 2 positive results follow in New York over the coming days, then she will have achieved something only ever done before in the women's game by 3 others, the calendar Grand Slam. No female player since Steffi Graf in 1988, in the Open era, has managed the feat, while Maureen Connolly and Margaret Court are the only others to find themselves on such an esteemed list, securing their slams in 1953 and 1970 respectively. But with the Australian Open, French Open and Wimbledon titles already in the bag this year, Williams has the chance to rewrite the record book at Flushing Meadows. For the second time in her career, she has already claimed the so-called Serena Slam, having won the last 4 majors in a row and is now on course for one of the greatest runs ever in professional tennis. World number 3 Vinci stands in her way before a potential final against Flavia Pennetta or second seed Simona Halep, should Williams safely negotiate her way past the Italian. I'm not going to underestimate her, Williams said of Vinci. She has played really well. She's not in the semi-finals of a Grand Slam for no reason. She knows what to do and she knows what to play. Vinci, who is competing in her first ever Grand Slam semi-finals after beating Kristina Mladenovic in 3 sets in the previous round, has not beaten Williams in 4 career attempts. Good luck, girls. It's definitely a game to be watched. And that's all for CYC News. Stay tuned for more Christian content on CYC. I'm Susie Michael from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia. Good night and God bless.